Imagine waking up tomorrow and every clock on Earth is gone. No phone, no watch, no numbers glowing on a wall. You do not know if it is 6 in the morning or 9. You have no way to say the time out loud, and neither does anyone else alive. This was the whole world for almost all of human history. Your ancestors ran their entire lives without a single clock, and yet they were not lost. They woke, they hunted, they planted, they gathered, and they met each other, all at the right moments. They somehow knew when to move, when to rest, when winter was coming, without one number to guide them. So how did they do it? How do you tell the time when time has no name, and nothing on Earth ticks? The answer is that they had a clock, an enormous one. It was just hanging right over their heads. Your ancestors learned to read time straight off the world itself. And once you see how, you can never unsee it. Let us take a look. Start with the most obvious clock of all, the sun sliding slowly across the sky. It rises on one side of the world, climbs to its highest point overhead, then sinks down the other side, every single day. So your ancestors did not need hours. They had morning, when the sun was low and climbing, midday, when it sat right on top of everything, then afternoon, as it slid down, and evening, as it touched the edge of the land. The day had shape without a single number, but the sun gave them something even more precise, not just where it was, but the shadows it threw. Push a simple stick upright into the ground and watch. At dawn, its shadow is long, stretched far to one side. As the morning climbs, that shadow shrinks and swings around. At true midday, it is at its very shortest. Then it grows again the other way as evening comes. That humble stick is the oldest clock on Earth, a shadow quietly telling the time. Once people noticed shadows could tell the time, they started to build. And the very first time, machines were made of stone. The ancient Egyptians raised giant stone needles, called obelisks, towering into the sky. As the sun moved, the obelisk threw a long shadow across the ground, sweeping around like a hand across a vast open dial. People could see the day split into morning and afternoon just by which way that shadow leaned. Then, around 3,500 years ago, they made it portable. A small shadow clock you could carry. A little raised bar cast a shadow onto a marked stem, dividing the daylight into parts. This was the ancestor of the sundial. Set it up right, and a glance told you how far the day had run. No ticking, just sunlight and a shadow doing the work. But every shadow clock had the same fatal flaw. The moment the sun went down or a cloud rolled in, it went completely blind. So what did people do at night, in the dark, when the sun was gone for hours? They simply looked up at a different clock, because the night sky is not still. The whole dome of stars wheels slowly overhead, turning around one fixed point all night long. The stars rise and set just like the sun does, and they do it in the same exact pattern, night after night, all year. So a particular star, appearing over the horizon, became a signpost. When that star rises, the night has reached a certain point. The ancient Egyptians turned this into a real system. They chose special stars, whose rising marked the passing hours of the night. As each one climbed into view, another slice of the night had passed. A clock made entirely of rising stars. Priests and travelers could split the darkness into watches and know how long until dawn just by reading the sky. Sun by day, stars by night. Between them, your ancestors could tell the time around the entire clock, without owning a clock at all. But telling the hour is one thing. Your ancestors faced a far bigger question. When is it time to plant? When is winter coming to kill us? Get that wrong by a few weeks, and a whole community could starve. so they needed a calendar. And again, they found it in the sky. They noticed the sun does not rise in the same spot every day. Its rising point slowly slides along the horizon through the year. At the height of summer, it rises at its furthest point one way. In deep winter, at its furthest point the other. Two turning points. Some peoples built huge stone rings and markers to catch those exact moments, like the Great Circle at Stonehenge. On the key day, the rising sun lines up perfectly through the stones, announcing the turn of the year to everyone watching. The stars kept a calendar too. The Egyptians watched for one brilliant star to reappear at dawn after months hidden away. When it rose, they knew the life-giving flood of the Nile was near. A single star, telling a whole civilization the season had turned. If your very modern clock-ruled brain is enjoying this, tap subscribe. Curio unravels one of these every single day. Okay, back to the story. Still, reading the sun and stars had limits. They vanished behind clouds, so people began to build clocks that needed no sky at all. The trick was to find something in the world that changes at a steady, reliable pace. And one of the first they found was water. A water clock was simply a vessel that let water drip out at a constant rate. As the level fell, you could see how much time had passed. The Egyptians were using these more than 4,000 years ago, so their priests could time night rituals in the pitch dark. Other cultures found their own steady processes. A candle, marked along its length, burned down hour by hour. In China, people burned sticks of incense that smouldered at a known, even pace, filling the room with a slow, fragrant time. And sand, trickling grain by grain through a narrow glass waist, gave us the hourglass we still picture today. None of them needed the sun. Each one had simply captured a steady piece of the world and let it measure out the passing of time. But here is the part that will bend your modern mind. For most of history, an hour was not a fixed length of time. Ancient peoples liked the idea of 12 hours of daylight. So they simply chopped the time from sunrise to sunset into 12 equal slices. That sounds fine until you remember that summer days are long and winter days are short. So a daytime hour in summer was genuinely longer than a daytime hour in winter. The hour itself stretched and shrank with the seasons. Your ancestors lived with hours that breathed with the year, and it bothered almost nobody at all. It was astronomers who first wanted hours that never changed, the same length in summer and winter, so their sky measurements would line up. But those steady, equal hours stayed mostly a tool for star watchers for centuries. Ordinary life kept its stretchy, sunlit hours. Only when the first mechanical clocks began ticking in medieval towers did the fixed, rigid hour finally take over the world for good. And that is the strange trade your ancestors never knew they were making. For thousands of years, time was something you read off the living world. The height of the sun, the lean of a shadow, the rising of a star. Time was tied to your exact place on Earth, to your own horizon, to the turning of your own seasons. It was personal. Then we built machines to slice it into perfect, identical pieces, and we gained something enormous. Everyone, everywhere, could finally agree on the time. But we may have quietly lost something too, that deep, wordless sense of where you are in the day just by looking up. Because your ancestors were never actually lost in time. They were reading a clock so vast it wrapped around the whole sky. And the honest truth is, we still do not know exactly when humans first began to track time beyond a single day. Those scratched marks on ancient bones might be the very first calendars, or they might be something else entirely. Nobody can say for sure. So next time you glance at a clock, remember, for almost everyone who ever lived, The real clock was the sky itself. Stay curious.